In China, the public healthcare system often feels like a broken promise. For everyday citizens, the system can be incredibly frustrating. Minor illnesses? They're often not covered by insurance, leaving you to pay out of pocket. Serious conditions? The reimbursement is often minimal. When you go to the hospital, you're required to pay upfront, and if you don't have the money, you might find yourself abandoned, lying in the hallway with no medical attention. Sadly, for many ordinary people, falling ill with a serious condition means financial ruin. And even worse, some families can't even afford to access treatment, effectively waiting to die at home. This is the harsh reality of a system that leaves the most vulnerable in a constant state of fear and helplessness. Next, let's watch a video edited and recorded by a young Chinese couple documenting their desperate journey of draining their entire savings to treat their young child. I will provide the English subtitles as a translation.
如果是这样，我可以安慰自己，在没有你的夜里，能画出一些光明。留灯烛快乐，全部都送去给你，苦涩的味道变了甜蜜。 只要有你，什么都变得可以，让所有流星随时都相遇。从此在
又假死了。
睁着眼睛看你远走的背影，没有变坏的青春，没有失落的爱情，所有承诺。 像星星。如果是这样，我可以安慰自己，在没有你的夜里，能画出一些光明。留灯烛快乐，全部都送去给你，苦涩的。
In China, although there is a healthcare insurance system, it doesn't cover minor illnesses, and it reimburses very little for major illnesses. Furthermore, not all medications and treatments are included in the reimbursement list. Even with insurance, a family may have to sell their house and car and still not be able to afford the full medical costs. What's even more troubling is that in China, patients are required to pay upfront before seeing a doctor. If you don't have enough money, even if you're in excruciating pain, doctors won't treat you. This is because if a doctor treats a patient without receiving payment first, and the patient cannot pay the full amount when discharged, the doctor is personally liable for the expensive costs, as the hospital will demand that the doctor cover the expenses. Therefore, China's healthcare system completely disregards the lives of ordinary people. On the other hand, government officials enjoy low-cost or even free medical treatment. An official patient can be attended to by many doctors and nurses, while the rooms designated for high-ranking officials, known as high-ranking cadres wards, remain empty even when ordinary people's wards are overcrowded. Now, let's take a look at the medical conditions enjoyed by an old military officer who fought in the Chinese Communist Revolution and contributed to the establishment of the communist regime. As you can see, the CCP high-ranking cadres ward has a private living room, private patient room, and private bathroom, making it feel just like home. Even on an ordinary birthday, this old CCP military officer is attended to by a group of doctors and nurses. In stark contrast, ordinary people not only don't have a team of doctors and nurses celebrating their birthdays, but if they can't pay, doctors will definitely turn them away. This is just like the helpless father holding his sick daughter, as shown next. Some may argue that the old military officer who fought for the CCP regime has merits and thus enjoying special treatment is quite normal. Of course, whether or not he fought for the CCP, I sincerely hope he receives good medical care. However, in facing the same situation, I would like to bring up how the issue was handled at the founding of the United States. After serving 2 terms as the first president, George Washington refused to run for a 3rd term or to become emperor, and resolutely returned to his farm. His fellow soldiers, who had fought beside him, came to find him and said, "We are all heroes, but the government has given us no special treatment." "We are the heroes of the American Revolution," Washington replied. "If your bravery was for the purpose of receiving privileges over ordinary citizens, then you are no longer heroes in the eyes of the people, but rather, you are conquerors. Any idea of breaking fairness and justice is a form of deprivation. I can return to my farm to work, and so can you return home to tend your sheep. This is the difference between the founding heroes of the United States and those of the CCP. The former fought for the people, while the latter fought solely for their own privileges." The Chinese communist regime, whether in healthcare or any other field, must be understood for its core principle: it spares no opportunity to extract money from the people. Its goal is to empty the pockets of the common people as much as possible. So where does this money ultimately go? The answer is into the personal pockets of Chinese communist officials. Just look up any hospital director, and you'll find they're embezzling hundreds of millions or more. This money is the hard-earned money of the patients. Some of it even comes from patients selling their homes and cars, scraping together every penny. They're like vampires, sucking the blood of the common people. In Jingdong County, Yunnan Province, all 16 hospital directors are corrupt, with a 100% corruption rate. This indirectly reflects that there are no hospital directors in China who are free from corruption. The corruption of hospital directors is certainly one of the reasons why ordinary people in China can't afford major medical treatments, but the more important reason is that the top leaders of the Chinese Communist Party are unwilling to reform the healthcare system. If we look at the healthcare system in Japan, one of China's neighboring countries, we see 2 key features. First, they have a system where patients receive treatment first and pay later, so there's no situation where people are turned away from hospitals due to lack of money. Second, Japan's healthcare has a cap system. If the reimbursement exceeds a certain amount, the government covers the excess, ensuring that no one is unable to afford medical treatment. Some might argue that Japan is a developed country with more money, while China is still a developing nation. Well, even other developing countries like India and Cuba have public hospitals that provide near universal free or low-cost healthcare, with people bearing far fewer costs than in China. Even though the healthcare conditions and resources in India and Cuba might not be perfect, they are still doing their utmost to protect the health of all their citizens. So, why can't China, the second largest economy in the world, implement reforms? However, the truth is, expecting the Chinese Communist Party to spend money on the people is wishful thinking. The CCP will only continue to endlessly drain the blood of the common people. But you might ask, are there no good doctors in China's medical workforce? The answer is definitely yes. Take this doctor, for example, who personally paid 1,006 yuan out of their own pocket for a patient's treatment. However, such doctors are extremely rare, and it should not be the responsibility of doctors to pay for their patients' medical expenses. Many critically ill patients are forced to sell their homes to afford treatment. How unfortunate the people under the Chinese communist regime are! The renowned Chinese scholar, Professor Yi Zhongdian, who has already been banned by the Chinese Communist Party on the internet, once made the following statement.
所有的领域都不能腐败。
Corruption should be prevented in all fields, but there are 3 areas where corruption is particularly intolerable. These 3 fields are healthcare, education, and justice. Corruption in healthcare puts lives at risk. Corruption in education threatens the future of our nation. Corruption in the judiciary endangers the stability and legitimacy of the regime. Corruption in healthcare jeopardizes everyone's safety. Corruption in education harms the future of our people, and judicial corruption will inevitably undermine the stability and legitimacy of the government. These 3 fields, in particular, must remain free from corruption. The system of the Chinese Communist Party is deeply unfair. It protects the privileges of officials while the vast majority of ordinary people live in dire conditions, where just one major illness can push them into poverty. The CCP is very skilled at offering the public superficial benefits to consolidate its power, but in reality, it is a regime that exploits the people. I do not support overthrowing the CCP, but rather learning from the British Revolution, keep the CCP, but push for institutional reform. At the same time, the CCP should return power to the people and make the other 8 political parties equal. The CCP should earn voter support through genuine merit, and only then can it hold power. If it cannot gain support through true ability, it should become an opposition party. Moreover, we should learn from Western Europe, where all officials are merely ordinary workers, just like everyone else. Of course, it must be said that the Chinese people are the most obedient group. They will never unite to fight for their legitimate rights unless forced to do so. This is a national weakness of the Chinese people, which senior CCP officials like Chen Yun have long pointed out. The CCP sees this weakness and exploits it even more ruthlessly. Well, that's it for today's program. Please feel free to subscribe, comment, and like. We'll see you in the next episode.